Despite having no depth, no true center, and currently not playing in front of any fans at home, the Raptors are in the mix for a playoff position, but getting a true center could take this team to the next level. So in today's video, we give you 5 centers the Raptors could legitimately trade for before the trade deadline. Let's get into it. Hey everybody, it's Jacob here with Amateur Hour Sports, the channel you get at least 4 different Raptors videos on YouTube every single week, and we do a watch party on Twitch for every single Raptors game. So if you love the Toronto Raptors, then make sure to subscribe on YouTube to stay up to date with all of those videos, and don't be afraid to check out those watch parties we do on Twitch at twitch.tv/amateursports. The next one is on Saturday. You can check it out, the link in the description. We have a big announcement coming for that stream that I don't want you to miss. But let's get into our topic for today's video. We're talking about 5 potential trades the Raptors could make for a center, or at least 5 centers that the Raptors should have a big interest in trading for as we approach the trade deadline. Because looking at this Toronto Raptors team, there is obviously talent. The starters of this team have carried us to this cusp of a playoff position, despite the fact that we have relatively no depth and no bench scoring, that's for sure. We have the worst bench in the NBA. We have been dealt a very difficult hand here, but the players like Siakam, Van Vliet, and others have really stepped up to keep us relevant in these sort of playoff discussions. So let's talk about what a center could do to this team. I think that this team legitimately could get to the next level by bringing in a center, somebody who could shore up the paint with that paint defense, has the ability to go on the outside and fit within that heavy rotation style we like to play on defense, and provide us that nice interior scoring threat. I think there's a lot of these things could really help out this Raptors team, because we are definitely a better team when Khem Birch is on the court, but Khem Birch, obviously, as much as I love the player, has a bit of his limitations. So what if we could get somebody even better than Khem Birch to shore up that starting 5 spot, that starting center for this team? And in this video, we're going to go through the 5 players that I think the Raptors should seriously consider trading for. So we have 3 different categories for these players. We have 2 players in the red category, as I'm going to call it. I'll explain what the categories mean as we get through it. We have 1 player in the yellow category and 2 players in the green category. And you're going to kind of understand what these categories mean as well, because let's get into our red category. The first center the Raptors can still trade for by the deadline is, of course, Myles Turner. From the Indiana Pacers, the Pacers are kind of looking to rebuild at this point. They've got some good assets like Sabonis and Holiday and LeVert that they could think about trading. Myles Turner also involved with those players. Myles Turner is a really good center for the league. I mean, he's one of the best shot blockers, if not arguably the best shot blocker in the league. Gives you 12 points per game, 7 to 8 rebounds per game. And one of the best things about this player is that he can space the floor on offense with a considerable degree of efficiency. He was about 33% is where he hovers in his 3-point shooting, which is quite good and something the Raptors could definitely find useful for their team. His contract might be a bit tough. If we include this as a full year, he has $17.5 million per year for the next 1.5 years. So the rest of this season plus next season, the salary would be $17.5 million. So you'd pay half of that for the rest of this season. But nonetheless, that is his valuation. The Pacers, again, looking to rebuild, looking to make some trades. You provide them some young assets and you provide them maybe a first-round pick. They would be inclined to probably make this trade. And the second player in that red category is Richaun Holmes from the Sacramento Kings. Similar to Myles Turner, what he brings you defensively, a decent shot blocker. Offensively, he provides you similar numbers with that 12 points and 8 rebounds per game. Doesn't space the floor anywhere near like Myles Turner. In fact, doesn't really do so at all, but a very assured finisher on the interior, has one of the best field goal percentages in the league consistently, and I think he would carry that over to the Raptors. One of the best things about Richaun Holmes is the contract as well. We kind of wanted to sign him in the offseason, and some are willing to go up to almost $20 million a year to bring in Richaun Holmes. Well, right now, with 3.5 years on his contract, his average yearly salary was roughly around $11 to $12 million. That is, I think, a bargain for this player who isn't even old at all. The reason I put these 2 players in the red category is because these are players the Raptors are going to have to move a first-round pick in order to acquire. I am extremely confident you won't be able to pull off a deal here unless you give a first-round pick. I think that if you don't, other teams are certainly going to do so with Myles Turner. Richaun Holmes isn't listed really as available. Myles Turner definitely is, but there is just no way you're able to get these guys without a first-round pick. And with the Raptors, that's got to be one of their best assets going forward. And I think that we're going to get into some players you may not need that first round pick for, or definitely won't need it for, that could be better for the Raptors. We're going to touch more on what the first round pick means for the Raptors as we get through the video. But let's find our next player, the third player on this list, the only player in the yellow category that I have. This is a player that I believe you probably are going to need a first round pick in order to get, but you can definitely find a deal in place where you are not going to need it. And I think that player is Jakob Poeltl, having a career year this season, averaging near 13 points per game, about 8 or 9 rebounds per game. Extremely efficient, not a player who does stretch the floor, but I think one of the best parts about Jakob Poeltl's game is he is a great defender. The Raptors drafted this player 9th overall a while ago now, and honestly, didn't quite pan out to that. We ended up moving him in that Kawhi Leonard trade. We traded DeMar DeRozan and Jakob Poeltl in order to get Kawhi Leonard and Danny Green, the greatest trade probably in the history of the Raptors, at least one of them, getting them to that championship level that they needed. But unfortunately, you had to lose Poeltl. It was worth it in the end, but hey, this is a player you could bring back. The Raptors would really profit from the defense that Jakob Poeltl brings, as well as the very efficient interior scoring. This would be a nice player to bring. The Spurs, not doing so hot this season, could think about moving on from Jakob Poeltl. The rest of this season, he's on his $8.7 million contract for this year. You'd pay half of that. Next year, you'd be paying about $9.3 million before he becomes a free agent. I think Jakob Poeltl has his ties to Toronto. He's very good friends with Pascal Siakam. I think you could work out a trade in order to bring him here, and you could have a little bit of confidence that he would stay beyond that contract and stay in Toronto with the Raptors. If you could get him from the Spurs, you don't have to give away a first, it might be worth it for the Raptors to get this player. The last two players fit in this green category. This is the category where the players you do not need a first round pick to get. Naturally, you don't have to give away first. They're not going to be as talented, but they can bring you something. They can absolutely bring you something. And one of the players I most like on this list is our fourth center, which is Nic Claxton with the Brooklyn Nets, listed more as a power forward, but at 6'11", absolutely fits the bill for a true center. Very good defensively and a very, very young player. He's on the last year of his rookie deal before he becomes a restricted free agent. You'd have his rights. I think the Raptors, if they got this player, would be willing to use those to bring him back to the team. Offers a lot of versatility defensively, even though he is really tall. He's lanky. He can stretch the floor on defense, can go play on the perimeter when necessary and do his job there. Excellent rebounder, excellent defender, and I think there is some potential for him on offense with that size. Has a little bit of craftiness in the post, has shown some good signs of development this season, but with a stacked Brooklyn Nets roster, they could be willing to part with this player to have more of a win-now situation type of player, or look at more assets that could just help them in the present that maybe Nic Claxton doesn't do. Instead of having to harness the potential of Claxton, they could look for a more assured player where the Raptors can take the burden of developing this player. I have been talking a lot about Nic Claxton coming to the Raptors since the end of last season. I'd really like to make a trade for this player. And the last player on this list, probably the worst player on this list, but maybe one of the easiest ones to trade for as a result, is Jackson Hayes from the New Orleans Pelicans. After getting drafted in the lottery just a few years ago, Jackson Hayes really hasn't done enough to impress with the Pelicans. And the Pelicans just might be looking to move on and get some assets for this player, but there is still potential in that player. It might be an easy player to trade for, and honestly, it may not pan out with your team, but with the potential there, maybe the Raptors can take a bit of a low-risk maneuver, not give away a lot, provide one of their young assets who's a little bit lost for ways here, maybe like Malachi Flynn, bring another player back like Jackson Hayes, who just really isn't fulfilling his potential with the Pelicans, and see what you can do. See if you can help him get to the next level. But I understand that trading for Jackson Hayes and maybe even Nic Claxton doesn't offer you a ton of immediate help, especially when you want to give Precious Achiuwa a lot of those development minutes with your team. Do you really need to go and make those trades? So let's look at the 5 players here. With that red category, again, the first round pick has got to come out to get those players. And in my opinion, with those first round picks, the Raptors, how much better does somebody like Turner or Holmes or even Jakob Poeltl make this team? I don't think that 2 years of Myles Turner, who's one of the most realistic guys to trade for, because you give away a first and some assets, Pacers are going to make that move. But does Myles Turner take our team to enough of a next level that we are going beyond that second round ceiling? I don't think so. With Myles Turner, can I see us getting to the conference final? Not really within the Eastern Conference the way it is right now. The Bulls, the Nets, the Bucks, the Heat, those are teams that I think could take down the Raptors in the playoffs, and I don't think that changes with Myles Turner. We are certainly a much better team with him, but Giving away that asset, that is gold to the Raptors. That is one of the best things that we do. We don't have a great ability to find free agents, so getting players drafted who are on our team, that's what the Raptors need to do consistently going forward to help their team develop and get to the next level. Richaun Holmes kind of fits that as well. And I think the same could go for Jakob Poeltl. So if the Raptors decide it is necessary to bring in those centers to really see what the ceiling of this team is, maybe with the young players that we have, guys like Scottie Barnes, it is necessary to be as good as possible to help with their development. But knowing that you gave away that first round pick, it may not quite be worth it unless you're getting a really young player who's going to grow with this team to kind of replace that first round pick. As it comes to Jackson Hayes and Nick Claxton, I think that a trade could work in those situations. The Raptors are supposedly buyers at the deadline, but I don't know how much is going to be in terms of us getting to our playoff aspirations. Personally, as much as we've struggled this season with our bench, as much as we struggled in the center department, I think that I can live with that, knowing that we kept on to the first round pick. If you can get some young assets out and bring in somebody like Nick Claxton, that's probably my favorite guy on this list based on his valuation and what he can bring to the team, then I would absolutely do it. But if I'm the Raptors, and I think they would agree with me on this one, I'm not trading a first round pick right now. I'm not rushing into a trade. Just a ceiling for this team, probably presently, realistically, second round, like at the best, they're probably a first round team. Making this trade doesn't really get us past the second round. And for that reason, I don't think it's worth it. I don't think we need to exhaust our assets in order to make it happen. But these are 5 very interesting players that the Raps could go with. If they want to go for it, you've got those 2 red category picks. If you're thinking about it, maybe go for that yellow one in Jakob Poeltl. But if you really don't want to go for it, but you know you need a center that can develop with this team, Jackson Hayes and Nick Claxton might be the right players for this team. Let me know in the comments which one of these 5 is your favorite for the Raptors to trade for, and if you think they should really go for it with a player like Turner's or Richaun Holmes. That is it for me for today. Thanks so much for watching this video. Drop a like if you did enjoy. Consider subscribing for more Raptors videos just like this, and don't be afraid to come check out our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/amateursports, where we do a watch party for every single Raptors game. Link is in the description. I'll see you again next time for another video.